Emma Jo, how are you?
Hey, good morning. Yes, that is absolutely happening. We have our Canadian nominee, and I'll be in Montreal in 2 weeks, so I will be taking the audience on a virtual tour. I have a piece going up probably today or tomorrow detailing Kamala Harris's not often talked about background in Canada, but we will be getting visual on-the-ground footage of her neighborhood.
Where she really connects with the Black, or she's down with the struggle.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's brutal to watch that because I actually come from the same neighborhood as Kamala Harris, where she grew up. She obviously wasn't born there. She was born in California. And then her mother taught at McGill and did research at the Jewish General Hospital in Montreal. And she lived in a neighborhood called Westmount, which is probably... struggle is not a word that you could ever associate with that neighborhood. And I really do encourage our listeners to Google it if you want to get a sneak peek of what you're going to get in my column. But there is, if you type in Montreal segregation, there is one type of segregation in Montreal, which I learned actually from writing this column. And when I learned it resonated with me and it rung true. That Montreal is known for economic segregation, which I wasn't actually explicitly aware of. But it's a fact, apparently, that Montreal has a very low likelihood of people who are wealthy interacting with people who are not. And Kamala Harris, you can guess which category she fell in. But again, struggle isn't something that I would use to describe her upbringing.
So I know we teased. So when is it? By the way, when's this article coming out?
Either today or tomorrow.
Okay. So we teased this conversation a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if I think it was maybe when there was even still thoughts of Joe dropping out or not, and it was like, oh well, if he does and Kamala's the nominee, we'll have this conversation as we get closer, and indeed. Here we are.
Yeah, and it's really like annoying to watch Trump get devoured for his comments yesterday. Obviously, he made them kind of clumsily, but there is a conversation to be had about the fact that Kamala Harris is one of many people who are of immense privilege, who happen to be racial minorities. I obviously know that she is a racial minority. She's half Black, half Indian. And this happens all the time where you have people who are 100% elites who apply to affirmative action programs or present themselves to, in kind of an affirmative, they culturally appropriate Black culture in order to benefit and exploit affirmative action policies in the United States. And I'm not going to go and say that, her nomination for president is some sort of affirmative action move. I wouldn't go that far. But she is appropriating Black culture in order to gain votes. And this is obviously something that she's used to doing, but it is cultural appropriation too. She's misrepresenting her culture and her background to relate to people based on her race, which is insignificant.
Which I love is like the root of this. That's also the root of the whole conversation. So when Trump did the thing yesterday at the National Association of Black Journalists, he had this line. He's like, it was essentially, I don't care which one you are. He's like, I respect either. Yeah. Just like, he's like, I don't care. And like, no one cares. Like, none of us care. I don't. It's not like the conclusion of this is, and because she's Indian, she can't be president. Or because she's Black, she can't be president. That's not the conclusion at all. It doesn't. Either one doesn't matter. So what is the point? Just that she's phony about it?
Well, yeah, like that's the thing is like we're all forced into this extremely awkward conversation that we didn't bring up. She brought it up because she is marketing herself in a certain way that isn't really real. And it is real technically, but she's implying something that isn't real, which is that she, let's say, relates to, with that silly little accent in Atlanta, that she relates to the Black culture of Atlanta, which is preposterous. She grew up in Berkeley and Montreal.
Preposterous.
It is.
Yeah, I like the word appropriate. That's really important. Appropriating Black culture is really important. We had a
Here's
Black
as
gentleman
much
call
to
in
do with
earlier.
Atlanta, by the way, as I do. We come from
Yes,
the
that's
same
right.
neighborhood.
Yeah. Could you, this is an important question actually. Could you ever imagine getting up in a crowd of Black people in Atlanta and talking about 2024? Could you ever do that?
Well, that's the thing. It's like this conversation came up after that Atlanta thing on the editor call, and I was just thinking to myself, because we were kind of talking about it, and what was that, and I was thinking to myself, I didn't say it out loud, but I was thinking, like, how would people react if I just started talking in that accent sometimes? like I actually have my real accent, and people call into the show wondering what it is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm clear. Like, it's just, and it's fine to own it. You know, like, that's what I don't get about these politicians. It's like really frustrating, and what is so charming and attractive about Trump is that in contrast to Trump and normal people, all of these politicians make up this make-believe personality and this make-believe persona, and it comes across as so cringe. And the last thing you really want, I would imagine, especially when you're trying to sell yourself to a massive population like the entire the country of America, you know, the last thing you want is people sitting and musing about like what weird quirk you picked up today because of who you were talking to today. It's like, is it so difficult, or is it so such a horror to just present yourself as you are? And that's exactly what Trump does. And, you know, obviously sometimes I guess it makes life harder for him, you know, but ultimately you can't say that Trump is fake. You can't say Trump is an opportunist or picks up positions for political convenience. That's literally the last thing you can say about him, and it's why he keeps doing well in politics.
I don't know when the cultural shift occurred. It might have something to do with social media, which is ironic, actually. But there's a great cultural value today on authenticity.
Yes.
And I think young people in particular, I think, really pick up on it, or one way or the other. Actually, it's just Trump is like the most. He's like, yeah, I'm rich. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, and I think we played the clip yesterday of Chappelle on his Saturday Night Live stand-up being like, the day that Trump won is when he was at the debate, and he's like, the system is rigged, and Hillary and Obama are like, no, it's not. I'm like, wow, Mr. Trump, how do you know it was rigged? Because I used it.
Yeah.
And they do too, and all their friends do too, and I know how it works because I do it. I'm like, so it's like, it was authentic. That's why that word. And then Tucker was the same way. He's the other person that is in this world, and he didn't make up some phony baloney, I'm like grew up rags to riches story.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I grew up super rich in La Jolla, in California. It's like, oh.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
And not only was Kamala Harris obviously wealthy, but apparently, I mean, according to Montreal Press, her mother actually made great progress on cancer research in her time at McGill. So I don't know why she kind of has tried to publicly sort of turn away from her background and where she comes from and her upbringing and all of that, because apparently, at least her mother, I know her father was some sort of communist, but her mother was apparently a very impressive person. And her time in Montreal was apparently spent very productively. So I don't get it. I don't get the fakeness, but I mean, well, I shouldn't say I don't get it because I just don't personally relate to it. But what is going on is that she's craven.
Explain more. What do you mean? It's a great word.
She's completely inventing herself on the spot at any given moment because of the political wind of the day, because she's trying to get power.
Yeah, that's the story.
Simple as.
That's why that matters. Gosh, it's so easy to, because we're talking about race. Have you heard the Judge Joe Brown interview yet?
Oh God, no.
I know. What a great introduction into the scene. Like, and up next, here comes Judge Joe Brown. Like, what? Judge Joe Brown? Where's Judge Joe Brown come from? All right, what's Judge Joe Brown have to say about Kamala? He was asked, what do you think about Kamala Harris? And he went on a 24-minute rant about her. But we played a bunch of it earlier. It's great. But
what was the
I
rant?
can see how someone would be like, hey, why? Oh, his first sentence was, "She's a piece of S."
Oh.
Was the opening line, and called her a lady of the night in fewer words, and knew her when she was a trial lawyer.
God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, he came in hot, and then said, I think so. There's all these attacks, and he went further than you and Trump in saying she's not black. He's like, I knew her dad, the Marxist professor at Stanford, and he's Irish. He's of Irish ancestry and a slave owner in Jamaica.
Yeah, well, he's written about that.
Yeah,
it's
so
brutal.
There's that.
Yeah.
An interesting thing that he mentioned that no one has, and I want to bring it up with Peter Schweitzer, is One West Bank. So he was like, I guess, personally involved, or knew people that were personally involved with One West Bank, and they got in big trouble. They broke the law, and they gave Mnuchin and they gave a bunch of money to Kamala Harris to win the DA's race, and then she dropped all the charges. Mm-hmm. And she was asked about this when Mnuchin was nominated to be the Treasury Secretary, and she obviously deflected in the media and didn't do anything more with it. And then George Soros ended up selling the bank for billions of dollars. So, and that's all true. That's all, now the insinuation, I don't know. We can't prove did she do it because they gave her a bunch of money? I don't know. How do you prove that, right? But all the facts of Judge Joe Brown, in fact, line up. But anyway, I bring him up because this word craven is great. Like his whole point, of course, is that she'll do anything and sexually even do whatever, but she'll do or say anything to get ahead. And that's the point, right?
Well,
that's
100%.
the point of all this.
At one point she's, a tough on crime prosecutor locking up people for smoking a joint. And then in the next moment, she's saying that crossing into the country is not illegal and that we have to consider allowing felons to vote. And these are things these are statements that occurred, just within a few years of each other. And then, in 2020, she was talking about banning fracking. But now, according to a spokesperson, by the way, because she won't go in front of a camera and say this straight, but according to a spokesperson, she's now not in favor of banning fracking. So it's obvious that she will she will say and do anything. And again, this is all just for personal power. This is all for personal gain. I'm not surprised by One West at all. Obviously, all this person cares about is personal ambition.